everybody, and welcome back to the channel, where today we are going to be taking a look at my post-draft rankings of every single team in the National Football League. Now that we are about 2 or 3 weeks past the NFL draft, teams' rosters are pretty much set until the final cuts right before the regular season, and this is kind of my opinions on where teams are at. So the 5 categories we have here are Super Bowl contender, teams that are clearly far and away favorites to make it to the Super Bowl, division, which are teams favored to win their divisions, but not necessarily favored to make a deep playoff run. Wild card, teams that most likely will make a wild card spot either due to a better team in their division or just them being kind of mid. And then mid, teams are just like 7-9, stuff like that. And then tank, which are reserved for the worst teams in the NFL, who are obviously trying to get the number 1 overall pick next season. So let's go ahead and start in order with the Arizona Cardinals. These guys are mid, even though I think they are tank. Even though I do think that they had a really good draft this year, not having Kyler Murray for the first half of the year and the overall roster being kind of just overall very bad leaves them in the tank position, and they are going to compete for the number 1 overall pick. And the fact that they got the Texans pick for next year as well is a really good sign for them, as I do think the Texans are also going to be bad, so they can potentially have like 2 top 5 picks next season. Leaves them a lot of wiggle room to play around with. Maybe they draft Caleb Williams, or they could trade Atwood first of all to get a massive haul to really, really improve the roster. So, Cardinals are in tank. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons. These guys are in mid, as I don't think, which is weird because like the entire NFC South is just just a bunch of mediocre teams not really knowing what to do. The Falcons, I think, they're not the worst team in their division, but I just don't see them being competitive enough to win the division. I think another team is going to do that. Although I really do think Bijan Robinson is going to have an absolute monster rookie season as they run the ball a lot. Got a great O-line, so stuff like that. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens, who I'm going to put in a wild card because I think another team is going to win their division. We're going to get to them shortly, but they had a really good offseason because they were able to re-sign Lamar Jackson. He is the best quarterback in their franchise's history. Dynamic playmaker, has a good arm, and 2 things happened to them. They got rid of Greg Roman's offense, which I think did help back the team a bit. And 2, they reinvested a lot into their offensive skill weapons. They already got Mark Andrews, who is a beast. And now they got Zay Flowers, I think, was it? Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. One that they got a receiver in the draft, signed guys in the offseason. So I think the Ravens are definitely going to compete for a wild card, but not necessarily for division there. Then we got the Buffalo Bills, who I'm putting in division because I'm kind of falling off them as Super Bowl contenders. Mainly because they've had the team for the past few years and just haven't been able to get it done. Mainly because the AFC is just so deadly. Like last year they ran into Joe Burrow. 2 years before they ran into Mahomes. And I just don't know if the Bills have what it takes to get over the top to make it to the Super Bowl and be a Super Bowl contender. But they're definitely their favorite to win that division, even though Aaron Rodgers is now a Jet. Tua should be healthy for the Dolphins. But the Bills, I think, are still the better team in that division. And then we got the Carolina Panthers going into mid. Again, like with the Falcons, it's just all the NFC South is mid. Even I'm not putting any of them in division favorites because they don't deserve it. I wouldn't be surprised if a team with a losing record won that division. And so the Panthers, they're mid. They're really banking on Andy Dalton, like just starting out, take over the reins while they get Bryce Young caught up to speed. I wouldn't be surprised halfway through the year they benched Dalton in favor for the rookie Bryce Young. And so, but they lost DJ Moore. They lost a ton of draft picks. They need Bryce Young to be the guy. But I think they're just going to be mid. And then we got the Chicago Bears, who I think are still in tank. They're not the worst team in the NFL, but I just think there's still a lot of holes on this team, especially on the offensive line. Yes, they went up and got Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee, but I still think they need a lot more work to do on that side. The defense is young and unproven, and also Justin Fields did show development last year. Can he keep that up? Can he take that next step into being a really good passer in the league? And I think to help them do that, the line needs to be a lot better. And they have the potential to do that, but until they Show me otherwise. I think that they are still going to be kind of a bad team, but one that fights in a lot of close games, like how the Lions were a couple years ago. And they're just going to keep building this young core, this young team, and like maybe next year or the year after, they can really start competing again. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Then we got Cincinnati Bengals, who are in the Super Bowl contender tier. They made it 2 years ago. They made an AFC Championship last year and lost to Mahomes in a close game. This team has a great defense. The offense is incredible with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. The offensive line has been improved. And as long as like those guys are there, the Bengals are a Super Bowl contender. The only thing that might hold him back is Zach Taylor not being the best coach. He has surprised a lot of people in his ability, but that also happens when he got good talent. But the Bengals are still a Super Bowl contender. Wouldn't be surprised if they're duking out with Mahomes and the Chiefs and Allen and the Bills for that spot in the Super Bowl. And then we got the Cleveland Browns. I'm putting them in mid, but in between these two teams, I just don't really know what they're doing. Because it really, really depends on if Deshaun Watson on the field can beat back what he was in Houston. If they can do that, they got a good shot at making a wild card or push up for that division. But if not, if he's the same guy we saw last season, which was really, really bad, I just don't see Cleveland being good. And they gave up a lot for him, and they also gave up a lot of money. So in the next few years, Cleveland is going to be under cap hell due to that stupid decision to give him that much money. So there's that. Then we got the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to be in the wild card tier. I think they still got a really good team. They got a lot of skill weapons. Michael Parsons is a beast on the defense. Dak Prescott still a very solid quarterback. But it's just, there's a team in their division that is just way, way better than them, and frankly. And so they wouldn't be really competing for division, but they could still make a wild card appearance like they have the past couple seasons. Then we got the Denver Broncos, who are another team much like the Browns, are kind of in this mid tier because we just don't know what they're getting out of the quarterback position. Because Russell Wilson last year stunk. We don't know, but we don't know how much that was Nathaniel Hackett being a terrible, terrible play caller, or was it really because Russell Wilson is not as good anymore? And that's a question the Broncos are going to have to find out, because they, again, like the Browns, gave up a lot to get Russell Wilson and gave him a big contract. And unlike the Browns, they gave up even more draft capital to the Saints to get Sean Payton as their head coach. Now, I think Sean Payton will be a lot better coach than Nathaniel Hackett. But the question is, can he elevate this team? It's possible. We just don't know. So until then, we know they're going to be mid. Then we got the Detroit Lions, who I am putting in division. Yes, that is right. The Packers fan thinks the Lions are going to win the NFC North. It's true. I really believe in this Lions team as a concept. I hate it as a Packers fan. But if there's any team to take it out, why don't they be the Lions? They haven't done anything. But that defense, after struggling early in the season, was very, very improved. Aiden Hutchinson is a total beast. Their offense was really good. Like, even though Jared Goff isn't the greatest quarterback in the world, he was able to run the offense really, really good. They got a great offensive line. They got good running backs, good receivers. And in a weak NFC North, I really do think the Lions are the favorite to win that and possibly a top 3 seed in the NFC. So, the Lions, you're in division. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers, who I am putting in the mid tier. Much like the Browns and Broncos, it's just because we just don't know what we're getting out of the quarterback position. Even though I believe in Jordan Love, we just don't know. And until we know, you can't really do much with a team that still has, I think, good weapons, a good offensive line, and a good defense if they play up to their potential. If Joe Barry doesn't screw up. But we're in a better position than the Browns and Broncos because we didn't give up a big package for a quarterback. Like, they gave up a ton of draft picks and big contracts. We still have a big contract because we were stupidly signing Rodgers to that massive deal. But after the season, that's taken care of. Don't have to worry about. But until we know what we have in Jordan Love, we just don't know. So they're in mid. Then Houston Texans are in tank. They are still rebuilding, even though I like the direction they're going with the rebuild. D'Amico Ryans, I really do believe in as a head coach. Their draft, I think, was good. CJ Stroud, I think, could be a really good starter for them. Will Anderson could be that key piece in that defense that D'Amico Ryans is going to love using. The only thing I didn't like about their draft is that they gave up their own next year's first round pick to the Cardinals. And I don't know why they didn't give up the Browns, because the Texans are still going to be bad. Like, they're not going to win a lot of games. And they gave up that very, very high draft pick to get Will Anderson, which I do still like that move, but I just don't know why they gave up the Browns' first round pick next year. But they still got a first round pick next year, so can't fault them too much. The Colts, you're going to be bad too. There's just no way around it. You're either starting Gardner Minshew, who is not necessarily a great option to starter, or they're going to rush Anthony Richardson way too early when that kid is raw as an uncooked steak. He has the talent. I really do believe he has the physical tools to be a great starter, but it's just, you can't rush him too early. And the rest of the roster is not really great. They still got Jonathan Taylor, still got a decent defense. I just don't see them going that far because they were bad last year. I think they'll be bad again this year. Then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are in division tier because they were a good team last year, and I think Trevor Lawrence is still going to develop, still going to return a really good quarterback, and the rest of the division is just awful. And they made it past the Chargers, and they gave the Chiefs a good fight in that divisional round last year for a really, really young team. Wouldn't be surprised in a year or two that Jacksonville is joining with the Bengals, Bills, and Chiefs as like the kings of the AFC with really good quarterback talent there. So, but they're not quite there yet. So, there's that. Now we got the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. These guys are Super Bowl contenders every year that Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. That dude is just absolutely insane, and he any team he's on, they're automatically contenders because he can just win games on his own. Like Prime Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. No matter what the surrounding cast is, you always got to worry about him because of that quarterback. Mahomes is that guy. So, wouldn't be surprised if they won it again this year. If they get past the Bengals and Bills and Jaguars. Because the AFC is really, really deadly. Next up is the LA Chargers. These guys are wild card teams every year, mainly because the Chiefs are just so good. And they still got a good team around them. Justin Herbert's good. They got good weapons. Defenses are all right. The question for them is always health, and will Brandon Staley be stupid? That's the question. But I still think they're good enough to compete for a wild card in the AFC. The AFC is going to be an absolute bloodbath this year, so watch out for that. Now we got the LA Rams. These guys are going in mid, mainly because we just don't know what Rams team we're getting, because last year they were bad, but they also had a ton of injuries to their core that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Will guys like Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald return to form? Because if that is the case, they're contending for that division and potentially the Super Bowl. But if not, if Stafford is still bad and Kupp and Donald aren't up to snuff because they're still recovering from injuries, they're going to be a kind of a bad team because that high-end talent masks a really flawed roster with a really bad O-line. So, be interested to see what the Rams do. The Raiders are mid, mainly because it's kind of like going to be the same they were last year. I mean, they traded Derek Carr out for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's kind of the same guy. The defense didn't get that much better. The offense didn't get that much better. So, they're still going to kind of be like a meh team fighting out for a potential last wild card spot, but most likely being sitting on the couch in January. Next, we got the Miami Dolphins, who are going to be competing for a wild card spot. The key to this team is Tua's health. If he's healthy, that wide receiver core is deadly with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think Tua can be a really good quarterback if he's not being concussed every other play like he has been in the past few years. But the main reason why I don't see the Dolphins going too far is just because, like, again, for many of these teams, the AFC is such a bloodbath. It is actually insane how crazy it is. So, we'll see what goes on there. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings, who I think can't compete for a wild card spot, mainly because the NFC is so weak. They did really good getting Jordan Addison as a perfect complement to Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins is still a very good quarterback. Not great, but good. And like I said, the NFC is weak. So even though they're kind of like a mediocre team in theory, them being in that conference gives them a better shot at making the playoffs. Next, we got the New England Patriots, who are mid as well. Don't really know what they're doing. The quarterback doesn't seem like they trust Mac Jones, but they gave the offensive play call last year to Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, who are like two of the worst head coaches in the past 10 years. I don't understand Bill Belichick. I don't, until they prove me otherwise. They're just mid. The Saints, again, with the rest of the NFC South, mid. Same reasons. They're just not a really good team. Don't know what they're doing at all. They got Derek Carr, which I guess is an improvement from last year, but that's not really the main issue with your team, so they kind of just Then we got the New York Giants, who are in the wild card tier, as they did make the playoffs last year. The roster is still the same with some added improvements, and I really do believe in this coaching staff can get the most out of these players. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants are competing for a wild card spot again this year. The New York Jets. Now this is interesting because I do think the Jets are better with Aaron Rodgers. I really do. Like, their main issue last year was quarterback play. And they also almost kind of made the playoffs. But this is what I've been saying. I would not be surprised if the Jets missed the playoffs this year. Even with Rodgers and with that great defense and good weapons. Because the AFC is such a bloodbath. I mean, think about it. In their own division, there's two other teams that are incredible and can beat them up. The Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets are all going to mash up together. And who knows what the Patriots are doing. Then in the AFC North, the Bengals are going to win that division. And they got to compete with the Ravens for the playoff spot. The AFC South doesn't matter. Then the AFC West, there is the Chiefs and the Chargers, who are really good teams. And if the Broncos get together, they could compete for a wild card spot. So there's just too many good teams in the AFC and not enough spots for the Jets. So I'm still going to put them in wild card. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're out of the playoffs. I just really wouldn't, just because of the way the AFC is structured, with how many great teams are there. So it'd be interesting to see. I'll be keeping an eye on it, because the Packers might get their first round pick next year, and they don't make the playoffs, the better to pick. So it wouldn't be out. I kind of want them to not make the playoffs. Then we got the Philadelphia Eagles. These guys are clear Super Bowl teams. They are the best team in the NFC, even with all the talent they lost last year. Jalen Hurts still playing really, really good. And again, like I said, the NFC is really weak. They're still a really good team, so I wouldn't be surprised if they make a Super Bowl next year. Pittsburgh Steelers, another team that's just mid. I think they still have a winning record, but they won't make the playoffs again because the AFC is so stacked. Seahawks, they're a wild card team. I think they improved a lot over the offseason. They added a lot of good talent in the draft. I think Devin Witherspoon really helps that defense out. Geno Smith, I think, will be a still really good starter for the next couple of years. And so I think they can still make a wild card spot. San Francisco is the second best team in the NFC, so I think they're automatically in the Super Bowl contender tier, because I think they can compete with the Eagles for the NFC. It's just, who the heck's going to be the quarterback? Will it be Brock Purdy? Will it be Sam Darnold? Will it be Trey Lance? We just don't know what they're doing. But they kind of just are a plug-and-play quarterback offense, and they still make really deep runs in the playoffs, because the rest of that team is like one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Tampa Bay, you're bad. Baker Mayfield's starting quarterback. Don't know what you're doing on defense, so you're just there. And the last two teams, the Titans and the Commanders, you're both kind of mid. Don't really know what you're doing. So there we are. So this is my little post-draft tier list. Not necessarily in order of like 1 to 32, but kind of where I see these teams at heading into the offseason and preseason as well. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think I got right? What do you think I got wrong? Disagreements. And I'll see you again very, very soon. See you around.